Hello and welcome back to Jack Knives Reviews. I'm of course your host, Jack Knives. Today let's look at a twisted version of a famous fairy tale, but from a different perspective, with the Ugly Stepsister. Elvira lives in an environment where beauty is praised and non-beauty is ridiculed and ostracized. Throughout the years, she becomes more and more jealous of her insanely beautiful stepsister, Agnes, resorting in her doing anything, including destroying her own body, just to be accepted. Over the years, there's been so many different versions and adaptations and retellings of fairy tales, to the point where trying to redo a new one it's almost overdoing it at this point. But I think because of this movie's approach, it's actually done in a very, very good way. Taking the original story of Cinderella, or Aschenputtel, from the Brothers Grimm, and twisting it into the perspective of body horror, but not in an unpractical way. Sure, the original story actually did have body horror with the older stepsister. I believe it was two stepsisters in the original story, who would quite literally do everything they could to basically look good for the prince, culminating in the final scene of the older stepsister cutting off her feet so much to fit the glass slipper that was Cinderella's, to try to trick the prince and then ultimately failing. It was disturbing, but the whole principle of Brothers Grimm's and fairy tales as a whole is about morality. It's to teach children horrifying lessons to scare them into being good. With Cinderella being appreciate the inner beauty within, appreciate what you have, and if you work hard enough, you may get rewarded. This movie, however, it takes that concept, the original core principles of Cinderella's story beats, but instead focuses the perspective to the stepsister. There is some changes in the names of the characters, but at their core principle, it's more about perspective. It's more about self-reflection and the lengths you're willing to go for beauty standards. So in that way, it's kind of almost a feminist story, but it's not done in a way that's overly pushy. It's more about appreciating what you have, while also being a really well done, structured body horror movie that uses real, practical effects and does it in a way using the horrors of the time. For instance, when they do the cosmetic surgeries, or when they want Elvira to change her looks by making her thinner, so they give her a tapeworm, or something that's so wrong, but in a weird way, what makes it so intriguing is these were actual practices they did at the time setting in which it took place. So it adds this level of societal pressure and character structure that you want to root for her to get out of the struggle of what she's in, but you also know she's kind of hindered with what she's dealing with. The movie was written and directed by Emily Bletchfield, and this is her first foray into psychological horror, or just horror in general. Generally, she has a resume more centered around rom-coms, a little more in the hallmarky fun stuff. So for someone who's very out of their depth, this is a great first horror movie, and I hope she does more because she has a real knack for visual aspects and filming. There are parts in the movie where I'm simultaneously enthralled with what's going on with the characters, but I'm also like trying to focus on the backgrounds and the beauty that I'm seeing, while also kind of seeing like a darker, gringier side to it. Like the scenes in the castle where women going back and forth, and they're almost like faceless in a way. It's really well done the way they structured it. The main lead in this movie, Leah Myron, I thought was phenomenal. She has this great sadness behind her look, but not in a way she wants sympathy or empathy. Doesn't understand why her. Why is this happening to her? Why do the pressures of everything around her happen to be about her? And it's really heart-wrenching in that way. I mean, her performance is really, really what grounds the movie and makes it feel raw. And then in contrast, Thea Sophia Loch Ness, the woman who plays the Cinderella of the story, Agnes, she is obviously beautiful. I mean, she wouldn't get the role if she wasn't. But she's not mean. Like, you'd think a movie that focuses on the perspective of the older, uglier stepsister being jealous of Agnes or Cinderella, she would be portrayed or be perceived as mean, or why aren't you this way? But she's not. She's very kind and very sweet. And she's almost like a background character, but not quite a background character. She's in the movie as a constant presence of the pressure of what's going on because her beauty is so natural and just bright. Her kindness, vibrancy is just shown on screen, and it's really, really well done. The main central thing that I loved about this movie was the portrayal of the evil stepmother. Played by Anna Dahl-Torp, she had this true bitterness about her. In every portrayal of the evil stepmother, I've always seen her as goofily evil. But even in the cartoon, she was far more subtle than people give her credit for. In every live action, she's so over the top. Whereas her portrayal here, naturally, her hating Agnes for being so pretty and her stepsister not being pretty. Her hatred was based off of solely look. Why aren't you looking as good as her? Why aren't you? I have all this. And it's all ego. And truthfully, I know people who have daughters and their mothers do that sort of beauty standard of expectation of one daughter is prettier than the other. It is a real thing. It's a thing I've seen firsthand that it affects them in a visceral level because your alleged loved guardian is just ridiculing you because of things that you can't control, like the way your face looks, or, I don't know, just not being as pretty as so-and-so, and it's done in a way that it gets to you. But the movie has a lot of things going for it, but it's also a movie that I feel may not be for everyone. Because the gore, practical effects, and body dysmorphia topics may be overly sensitive to a lot of people, especially people that have a struggle with body dysmorphia or beauty standards or things like that. And yeah, I could see this being a hard movie to watch. But it is an important movie, I think, to tackle being okay with yourself in a way that very few movies can do in a proper justice way. But I think this is an example of doing it right, while still being in the spectrum of horror and having enough for a gorehound like me to appreciate. Plus, it's just overall a good drama horror movie in general. I give The Ugly Stepsister 4.5 out of 5. Have you seen The Ugly Stepsister? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to stab that subscribe button and slice that like button, and I'll see you next time.